Moi, I'm Pete. In this video I will tell you about cable foiling, that is foiling in a cable wakeboard park. I have seen a handful of videos where people do foil in a cable park, but none really explains how to do it and one might actually want to do it. Note that I'm no expert, but I thought I could share my experiences here. Note also that I'm going to be quite pedantic to share all the tips I can think of. Instagram and TikTok users beware. Let's get started. A few words about my personal background and motivation. When I first started cable foiling, I had over 10 years of experience in wing skiing and skating in winter on the frozen sea and lakes here in Finland. I had also been doing occasional cable wakeboarding for about a year at that point. It was when I saw somebody wing foiling that I realized that I could extend my winging hobby to the summer season as well. I decided to first learn to foil in the cable park. This turned out to be a really good way to learn to foil and then to improve one's foiling technique. So, where to cable foil? First, a disclaimer that my experience is limited to linear 2-tower cable parks where one rides back and forth along a single cable line. The bigger circular cable parks are a different beast, which I don't know much about. I would recommend finding a cable park with a cable operator who knows what they're doing and can control the speed to better assist you in your learning. Here around Helsinki, I would recommend Ride and Joy Wake Park, whose operator has plenty of experience with foilers as well. It's better to contact the foil park in advance, as some might have shallow water or vegetation in some places. Many have ropes, chains or cables underwater for the wakeboarding obstacles, and some might not allow foiling altogether. Again, at Ride and Joy, they have made sure that there are no ropes in the middle of the track to make foiling possible. Let's then talk about the gear. Do wear a helmet, do wear an impact vest, which may actually be required by the cable park. Wearing a wetsuit and neoprene boots isn't a bad idea either. It's easy, especially in the beginning, to kick the foil or otherwise make contact with it, and that can hurt. Most parks probably rent out such protective equipment. I'd start with a low volume but reasonable area wake or kite foil board, which is easy to water start but is still lightweight and maneuverable. But if your end goal is, for example, wing foiling, where you'll need a big floaty board and you don't want to invest in multiple expensive boards, such a board is totally fine for learning too. Like in other foiling disciplines, it's probably good to start with a stable, big low aspect foil, but I wouldn't go too big because the cable has plenty of pull at an upward angle. I use a 70 cm mast, which wasn't too difficult to learn on, and it feels good for carving and pumping. A good method to place the mast on the tracks is to have the board upside down and to lift it from the center of the front foil wing. Adjust the mast position until the board hangs horizontal. If you now were to stand on the board with the front foil wing right in the middle between your feet, your center of mass, the board's center of mass, and the center of lift would all more or less be aligned. A beginner can start with the mast a centimeter or two further back to reduce lift and gradually inch it forward to one's own liking. I like to use a front foot strap, mainly for convenient water starts. Note that you can break your foot if you fall badly with it stuck in the strap. That is why I have my strap as loose as possible, so that my foot will always slip out. I also like to wear a long coiled board leash so that I don't have to swim after the board when I fall. I have never had it pull the board to hit me after falling, but this might depend on the leash. It's also a good idea to have a friend or a significant other learning with you for peer support or just to cheer. They can also record video of your learning so that you can better see and fix potential issues in your technique. Now, let's move on to the how-tos of cable foiling. In my opinion, being able to water start without drifting to the side is fundamental. First of all, this allows you to best control the board and the foil, maximizing your chances of a successful takeoff. Moreover, most cable parks have a lot of wakeboarding obstacles next to the cable. If you're on a collision course every time you try to water start near them, you'll spend most of your session swimming. It's also important to communicate with the operator about the rate of acceleration during and after the water start. The cable shouldn't accelerate too fast, of course, but not too slow either, as the board and the foil can feel unstable at slower speeds. If possible, try water starting with a wakeboard first, as it's very similar but a bit easier. If one is available to you, give a wake skate also a try. Float on your back under the cable, holding the handle with both hands and with your legs pointing to the riding direction. As the cable begins to pull you, you can cling to the handle with straight arms and let your knees rise to your chest so that you'll roll onto the board in a deep squatting position. Keep the board sliding sideways, don't try to turn it yet. Slowly rise up, trying to keep your back straight and upright. You can go the entire length of the cable track, sliding sideways. There's no rush. Once you're ready, slowly shift the handle in front of your desired forward-facing hip. Let go of the handle with your backhand. You can use it as a balancing tail. Try to keep an even weight on both feet. Bend your knees slightly, but keep your back straight and upright. Bring your hips forward to keep your butt from sticking out. You can squeeze your butt cheeks to help with this. Okay, it's now time for a foil board. Start under the cable with the board in front of you in the riding direction. Grab the board and press down with your elbows to tilt it. Slide your front foot into the foot strap and lift your toes to keep the board tilted while you float on your back and wait for the cable to begin to pull you. You can place your back foot under the tail of the board to help hold it in place. Once the cable begins to pull, move your back foot onto the board. A shoulder width stance with the front foil wing centered between your feet is a good starting point. Cling to the handle with straight arms and let your knees rise to your chest to begin to roll onto the board in a squatting position. Keep enough weight on your back foot to keep the board sideways so that you don't start drifting to the side the board's nose is pointing to. You obviously can't ride the foil board sideways like a wakeboard, so just before you roll onto the board, shift the handle in front of your desired forward-facing hip and slide your front foot in front. Rise up with your back straight and upright. Keep your knees slightly bent and again let go of the handle with the back hand. Try to keep even weight on both feet and remember to bring your hips forward to keep your butt from sticking out. It's best to first practice keeping the foil under control by taxiing. This means riding the board down on water. As the operator increases the cable speed, the board should start to glide with less resistance. This is because the foil begins to lift you. You will probably feel pretty unstable on foil at first. To manage this, you can try to keep your first flight short by shifting your weight gently forward right after takeoff. You can gradually do longer and longer flights and you'll be foiling in no time. Avoid flying too high because the foil will stall and lose its lift if it reaches the surface of the water. The operator can try to help you here by reducing the speed if you are getting very high on the foil. Note, however, that they might not have enough time to react. If the foil is not lifting you, this might be due to a few factors. You might have too much weight on the front foot, the mast might be too far back in the track in relation to you, or you might not have enough speed. To ease the takeoff, you can also try to gently rock or to pump the board with your feet a little like doing an ollie with a skateboard. Alternatively, you can try to cut out diagonally from under the cable. If, on the other hand, the foil feels like it immediately wants to shoot out of the water, shift your back foot forward. If you feel this leaves you with too narrow of a stance, you can also move the mast backward or the front foot strap forward. When you're starting to get the hang of foiling, if you feel that one leg is getting more tired than the other, this most likely means that you are leaning on that leg to have your weight properly aligned. If it's your front foot, try shifting the back foot slightly forward. If it's your back foot, try shifting the back foot slightly backward. When you fall, don't try to save it. Instead, fall with the board to avoid hitting the foil. Also, be sure to pull your feet out of the foot straps if you're using them. If you fall in front of the board, you can try to push the nose of the board down into water, which makes it stop pretty much instantly. You can also try to hold on to the handle until you hit the water to get pulled as far away from the board as possible. While underwater, use your arms and legs to cover sensitive areas of your body in case the foil still bumps into you. In a two-tower park, the cable reverses its direction as the rider reaches the end of the track. To stay aloft, therefore, you need to do a turn. You can start with taxiing turns. These are similar to turns with a wakeboard. Bring the board down and grab the handle with both hands. Lean back to load the heel-side edge of the board and to cut out diagonally to your backside. Try to prevent your butt from sticking out. Keep your weight forward enough to keep the board down. You can also cut out at a smaller angle or ask the operator to reduce speed to prevent the foil from lifting. When the cable stops, assume an upright position and level the board. Pulling the handle down towards your hips can aid this. Keep sliding in the same diagonal direction until the pull from the reversed cable turns you. You can lean slightly against the rope to avoid tipping over to your toe side. On foil, I prefer to glide through the turn with the rope slack, not to have the cable pull me off balance, and to enjoy the sensation of carving without support. You can practice flying the foil without support, for example by trying to glide back to shore after each set. Just be careful not to damage your foil or board in case the water is shallow near the shore or there are other obstructions. As soon as you feel more or less confident flying straight, you can start to make very slight curves along the cable track. You will quickly gain confidence to carve more aggressively, at which point making a full turn at the end of the cable isn't that daunting anymore. To stay afloat during a turn, wakeboarders cut out diagonally to gain speed. With the foil, I'd start by gently cutting out to avoid gaining too much speed and to keep the foil from breaching. As you get more confident, you can cut out more aggressively for more speed. Remember to communicate with the operator to find a suitable speed for you. Eventually, you will stay aloft throughout the turn. At the end of the turn, you can try to extend your flight by pulling down the cable, by cutting out, or by pumping. Pumping the foil is a technique to propel oneself without an external force. While it's challenging, pumping is a valuable skill for other foiling disciplines. For example, when transitioning between waves in wave riding or when flying through lulls in wing foiling. Cable foiling is great for practicing pumping because you can easily get on foil with a lightweight, easy to pump board. In addition, there are typically no waves. To get started with pumping, you can keep pitching the board gently up and down as you foil along the cable track. You will soon be comfortable doing this more and more aggressively. You can then cut out slightly to get a little more speed, let go of the handle, glide, and gently start pumping without support. I recommend watching pumping specific instructional videos to learn about the actual technique of pumping. If you have a two-tower cable wakeboard park located near you, cable foiling might be a great way to get you foiling. You don't need a boat and you don't have to worry about the wind or the waves. It's also great for learning pumping and for practicing turns without having a bulky wing in your hands or being tugged by a kite or being jostled around by waves. Cable foiling, of course, doesn't prepare you for waves or for wings or kites, but at least you'll have one fewer difficult thing to learn at the same time. That's all I had. Have a great time flying.